Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here. And yes, you're just drunk. You're not seeing clearly. We forgot to focus my camera. There we go. Coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, the very sober John Campea. And this is the show where we talk about the things that we love, movies and movie news, TV and streaming. We talk about the stuff that makes us happy, and we're glad that you're joining us here today. Also joining us here today, our technical producer, Jonathan Boyko.
In Panavision.
Writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett.
I apologize to everybody who texted me and was angry I didn't show up at the meetup last night. I profusely apologize.
I explained to everybody there that something came up and you weren't able to make it. It's okay. You'll come to the next one because we're going to do our next one at home in the Tyler in Riverside at the Tyler.
Oh, wow. Are you doing out there?
Cool. We're going to do one there. We don't have a date yet, but I'll let you guys know. For those of you in and around the Riverside, California area, we will be doing a meetup at the AMC Tyler Galleria. So I hope you guys are going to be able to join us then. Nice. Good to have you guys here. And here's how today's show is going to go. We got one topic that we're going to talk about here today. And then after that topic, we're going to throw it open to you guys in the live chat. If you guys have a thought, theory, opinion, or question, we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you have a comment or question, just use the super chat feature in the live chat, and we'll get around to those in the next part of the show. All right, guys. I just want to throw out here that extremely grateful to everybody who came out and joined us last night at our movie meetup that we did in my old stomping grounds of Burbank, California. We were at the AMC Burbank 16, and you can see an image of it here.
Nice.
This was all of us last night in front of that Batman statue. We had an absolute ball. You might see just right beside me there is Taylor. Taylor came out and joined us for it last night, which was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we saw Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
You did.
I did, yeah.
Was it better than Party Supreme?
Didn't you go to see
Predator? I was going to do Predator Badlands, but I couldn't make it in time, so I just came for the meetup.
Oh, so you just showed up afterwards. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, went in to go watch Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and what an absolute sack of shit movie that is. It's horrible.
Don't mince words, John. What do you really think?
So bad.
Five Nights at Marty Supreme's.
Like, it's approaching Craven levels.
Ooh.
It was that bad. Performances were all awful. There's no logic to it. The whole thing is laughable. It's just terrible. I will say this, though. I'll give it this. You guys saw in the trailer that there's a scene where, like some people from a ghost busting show go to tour around the original Freddy's.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give it this. That sequence, which is like early in the first act of the movie, and it's only about 8 minutes long. That sequence was pretty good. Legitimately creepy. Creepier than the original Five Nights at Freddy's. Had some legitimate scares, some legitimate chills, and a couple of really good jump scares. Couple of laughs. Rest of it was absolute rubbish. And one of our fans came up to us, bring up the group photo again here. If you see in the bottom left, there's somebody actually wearing a Freddy Fazbear thing. God bless his soul, he loves this movie. And this last night was his 5th time seeing it, which another example of all film is subjective. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it didn't work for somebody else. And he loved the film, and that was great. But I personally thought it was gutter trash. It's like everything that's wrong with movies today. It's totally terrible. And I will not be going to see Five Nights 3. I'm going to give myself some mercy and not subject myself to that trash. It was so bad. Anyway, guys, good to have you here. And again, thank you to everybody who came out and joined us at the movie meetup last night. Okay. With that down, guys, let's get into our one and solitary topic here today, because I thought this was pretty worth talking about. Obviously dominating the news cycle for the last number of weeks, almost a month, has been the sale or upcoming and potential sale of Warner Brothers. Paramount was the first company to fire shots across the bow, putting in bids. Then it kind of opened it up to a big bidding race, became a 3-horse race between Paramount, Netflix, and Comcast, NBC Universal. And ultimately, the winner ended up being Netflix. Now, that's still being contested because now Paramount's going to try a hostile takeover. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but you never know. And yesterday, we spent some time talking about the fact, some really interesting comments from Ted Sarandos saying, look, we didn't spend $82 billion just to gut the value of something. And we talked about, some people thinking, Netflix is just doing it to kill movie theaters. They literally could buy, we went over this yesterday and we went through the numbers. They could literally buy the top 5 movie chains in North America, including Regal, AMC, Cinemark, Marcus. They could buy all 5 of the top 5 movie theater chains for $6.2 billion instead of the $82 billion they're spending on that. And then Ted Sarandos made some pretty bold claims saying, listen, we've always wanted to be in theatrical. But as a company, Netflix, we are not positioned to be theatrical. We don't have the expertise. We don't have that, but Warner Brothers does. And Netflix movies are going to continue to distribute the way they do, but Warner Brothers movies are going to continue to distribute the way they do. And we bought these businesses because we see value and all that. All good sounding stuff. All good sounding stuff. We'll see how it turns out. But despite all of that, you guys know that my first reaction when I heard Netflix was interested in buying Warner Brothers. This is going back a few weeks. I said, this is the worst possible outcome. Netflix getting them is the worst possible outcome. Now, granted, in recent weeks, Netflix has made some very bold statements that have alleviated some of my worries, but it does not take away from the fact that while I am gaining some optimism about a Netflix takeover of Warner Brothers, slowly, there still remains several cataclysmic and disastrous scenarios that could come about as a result of Netflix buying Warner Brothers. Now, most of these points we're going to cover here today, most of these potential disaster points, have been to some degree addressed by Sarandos already. Fine. But these are still things that could go very, very wrong. And if any of these 5 things that we're going to talk about here today do go wrong, it's a disaster. It's a complete and utter disaster, not just for Warner Brothers, but also for the film-loving community. It'll be disastrous. So we're going to spend our time here today talking about these 5 points. And then once again, if you guys have any thought theories, observations, points of view that you'd like us to address, go ahead and fire them in the super chat, and we'll get to those a little bit later. So let's now take a look at how this Netflix Warner Brothers deal could end in disaster. And we're going to address these one at a time. The first one is this. HBO Max gets dissolved and absorbed into Netflix. Were this to happen, it is absolutely an unmitigated disaster. Just to start this whole thing off and to preface this, the executives at Netflix have already stated publicly, our plan is to keep Netflix totally as a separate service. Okay, great. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. But if it doesn't, it's disastrous. Because here's one of the things, Rob. HBO, and this is one of the reasons, out of all the things David Zaslav has done that I've really respected, even when other people were gang piling up on him, I said, nope, this is the right move. The one thing I've always said, what the hell are you doing, Zaslav, was when they renamed HBO Max to Max.
Dumbest thing ever.
It was one of the dumbest moves ever. Now, thankfully, he later on corrected that move. Good. But it was one of the stupidest things ever because HBO, take everything else out of it, just the name HBO. It is not hyperbole to say it is one of the most respected, venerable, brand names in all of entertainment. HBO means highest of quality. HBO means highest of revered and all-time great television shows and entertainment. It is the pinnacle. It's the crown jewel. It is the benchmark. HBO is the benchmark, and they took that name out. So, Rob, were it to happen, and again, Netflix is saying it's not, but were it to happen that Netflix gets their hands on everything a year from now, they get in and say, we changed our minds. We're going to shut down HBO Max. We're just going to bring The Wire into Netflix. We're going to bring The Sopranos into Netflix. We're going to bring 6 Feet Under into Netflix. We're going to bring Game of Thrones into Netflix. We're just going to bring it all into Netflix. Get rid of it. It's an utter disaster for 2 reasons. Number one, as we've been kind of suggesting, it's the disappearance of probably the most respected name in quality television ever, of all time, including today. Secondly, the HBO engine continues today to create great, fantastic entertainment. And to lose that to Netflix would be, again, and I'm going to use this word a lot today, ladies and gentlemen, it would be disastrous if this were to happen. Rob, I'm saying the first point, and these are in no particular order, of a thing that could end up being disastrous is Netflix just decides to absorb Warner Brothers into itself. Agree, disagree? What's your point of view on that?
Oh, I totally agree. And I think it speaks to the thing that I worry about most about Netflix, about all of this, about our entire age, is Netflix is essentially a tech company. They're not really an entertainment company. They've sold other people's work. Even when they started out as a DVD rental company, they weren't making their own movies. They were sending other studios' movies out to you. And big tech has become, it's all completely analytic driven. And they're looking at how do their analytics relate to getting more subscribers. Well, the thing is, subscribers are not infinite. You can't like dig deeper into the earth and bring more ore out of it like you could with the earth. There's only a finite amount of households. Like in the United States, there's only a finite amount of households with people that can get Netflix. And that is also true of the world. So you butt up eventually against a number of subscribers. So you're making programming that is supposed to lure in. You're looking at everything but creativity. You're looking at elements like this movie has to have a banger. An action scene has to happen in the first 4 minutes, and they're going to start making their programming around those analytics. Well, HBO don't do that. You have creators and writers and people that have been making things for a long time that know how to tell a story. They're great storytellers. You have multiple people that have made, like Darren Star, creating stuff like Sex and the City. He has a way he works. Or you bring in Shonda Rhimes, which Netflix did. They brought in creators, or Sean Ryan? Who makes a Monstrous? Who makes American Horror Story?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, they bring that guy in, right? And they bring these creators in, and they paid him a lot of money. HBO should be left alone. If they start making programming based on analytics and tell HBO to do that, HBO's finished. And the thing is, Netflix, my fear is right now it sounds good to them, but they're going to be pressured by their stock price, and they're going to go back to their analytics-driven creation of content. And if they ever do that, they're sunk, because then we'll never get the quality of programming that the spark of creativity must endure. And even in our AI-drenched world, if you have a creator behind using AI tools and it's still their sensibility, you're still getting something that's theirs. But if a creator is told you have to work within these analytics, we're going to lose it.
I mean, to play devil's advocate, though, because I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but let me play devil's advocate. I've always been extremely critical of, and rightfully so, of Netflix's inability to make quality film. About 1 out of every 100 movies they make is really good. But they've done a pretty good job with their television.
Yeah.
Like when you look at things like House of Cards, or you're looking at things like, we're in the middle of Stranger Things right now. I mean, they have, not as good as HBO, but they have had some really good success in making some, dare I say, really quality shows. So I just want to give them at least a little bit of flowers.
And I want to say 100%. And they've also had a great track record in finding shows from foreign countries like Squid Game. They have a lot of they've found interesting. Look, I'm a huge Netflix fan, and like I told you, they're making a movie. There's a show that's on Netflix. It's a French show about a talent agency that had a lot of American actors show up to play themselves in the show. Great show. They're now making a movie out of it. But those shows and Stranger Things, the Duffer Brothers, House of Cards, those were made by creators for Netflix.
It's Narcos.
And Narcos, another thing. Netflix wasn't saying, okay, you have to do this in this way.
So
But
if they can carry that philosophy over,
yes,
then that could be fine. My fear again is just them just shuttering HBO and just absorbing it into Netflix.
Right. Look, I hope they don't do that. And if they do, I hope they bring the creators, because look, they bought like 10 Harlan Coben novels, and they've been turning them into these 10-episode mysteries and adapting the entire book. They're great. I watch them all, even though they're all kind of the same. I'm a fiend. I'm like, show these things to me. They made that deal. They're like, we're gonna buy 10 Harlan Coben novels. So they've been. I think Netflix, when it comes to shows, they brought us. Didn't they bring us Dark? Wasn't Dark on Netflix?
They brought us Dark. Actually, now that they bring it up, let me just list some of the hit list here. So yes, they did bring Dark.
That was amazing. German
Mindhunter.
Yeah,
Ozark.
Dude, that's
The Crown, Stranger Things, BoJack Horseman, Narcos, Orange is the New Black, Queen's Gambit. Let's go back to the Marvel era.
Yep.
Daredevil,
Yep.
Punisher, Arcane, Bridgerton, which is hugely successful.
Yeah.
The OA, 13 Reasons Why, I Think You Should Leave, Sex Education, Lupin, When They See Us. I mean, they've
all of those are creator-driven shows too.
Which again, which is fine, which to me speaks well about why they should leave Warner Brothers alone, because they're good at recognizing something that's good and letting it be. And if they can just follow through with what they're promising, which is they're going to let Warner Brothers HBO Max remain as a separate service with its own creatives to do its own thing, it's fine. But if it doesn't, and they just say nope and just succubus it into itself, and it's all just Netflix, again, I think we're talking about a disaster. I think we are.
I do too. And look, I don't mind if it was, Netflix presents HBO. I don't care what they do. There's already a guy who made some video on the internet showing what a Netflix logo would look like with Warner Brothers. Somebody sent it to me yesterday, and I'm like, that doesn't bother me. What we want is great programming.
Yeah.
That's it.
And if you can keep having Netflix making and producing good television and allow HBO Max to continue doing what it does as well, then all is fine.
Yeah.
All is well.
And you're not consolidating, like, not just IP, but thought and storytelling. And you still are maintaining
philosophy.
Yes.
It would be really, really bad.
You're still maintaining a studio as if it was never purchased.
All right. That was point number one. Let's move on now to the second scenario that would turn this Netflix Warner Brothers deal into a complete disaster. And our second one is this. Netflix shrinks Warner Brothers movies' theatrical windows to Netflix length windows. Now, again, like in point one, let me preface this by saying that just in the last couple of days, Ted Sarandos, the head of Netflix, has come out and said, no, listen, we've got certain windows for our Netflix movies because all we care about is Oscar eligibility, and we're not going to change that for Netflix. But Warner Brothers, we're buying the business because we like what they do and we like how they're doing it. And so now look, he's always said he's been against the 90-day theatrical window, which I think he's dead wrong about. They should absolutely go back to a 90-day theatrical window. But it sounds like they're not really looking at touching the 45. Mm-hmm. Now, I do believe that even with everything he's saying, somebody wrote into me yesterday and asked, do you think that if a movie's doing super great, does that mean they can't leave it in theaters for longer than 45? Well, of course they can. Yeah, absolutely they can. But it also might mean there might be a couple movies they put out that are just absolutely disastrous, which, by the way, it might not even be up to the studio to pull it earlier than 30 days. It might be up to the movie theaters. Because you may be a movie studio that has your movie in a movie theater, but guess what? AMC doesn't care how many people buy tickets to go see movie X. What they care about is people are coming into their facilities to buy popcorn and soda. That's how AMC makes its money. And if you've got a movie on their screen that isn't bringing anybody in to buy popcorn and soda, guess what? AMC is going to say, how can I miss you if you never leave? And show them out the door and say, closing time, and just get the movie out of there. But generally speaking, it is a good song.
Demonetized.
That's right, copyright strike.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think in general, they are looking at keeping that. And again, Ted Sarandos saying, why would I spend $82 billion if I just wanted to gut it? That's fine. But let's get to the matter at hand. If they do, if they do decide to Netflixize the Warner Brothers releases, which they swear up and down they want to keep as full theatrical stuff, that it's best for us. That's why we're spending our money on it. And I believe them, I do. But if they renege on that, if they go back on that, if they decide 10-day window or whatever, this isn't just a Netflix and Warner Brothers issue. The shrinking of the theatrical windows has gone hand in hand with the decline of the movie theater business. And it is infuriating to me that all the studios and all the distributors don't recognize what the movie theaters have been screaming at them. You are killing your own product by constantly shortening the theatrical windows to the point now that some people just, oh, that movie looks great. Oh, but I'll probably be able to watch it on Peacock in 2 weeks, so I'm not going to bother going. It has been one of the things that has been hand in hand with the decline of the movie theater industry. And were Warner Brothers to come in, or if were Netflix were to come in and to force Warner Brothers Pictures, which they swear they're not, but if they do, and say, 14-day windows. In theaters now, but in, 14 days, 2 weeks, 2 Saturdays from now, you'll be able to just watch it on Netflix. I think they'd be slitting their own throats. I think they're doing more and more damage to the movies in general, and it would absolutely be a complete and utter disaster. Rob, our second point here that would turn this Netflix Warner Brothers deal into a complete disaster is if Netflix, which they say they're not going to do, but if they did, this thing would be an absolute mess and an absolute disaster. Your perspective on that?
I completely agree. Look, as we've said before, everything that adds value to your product is something that is desirable. And we've said it a million times, a great theatrical run, or even a theatrical run at all, where you're and by the way, it can't just be putting the movies in theaters. It has to be marketing them properly as well.
Oh, 100%.
You can't
Absolutely.
have,
good point.
Yeah, you can't have Netflix go, yeah, but we're only going to spend this much on marketing.
Who's the worst in the world at promoting their own material? Netflix. Yeah.
And but again, you're going to look at analytics and go, you're spending this much money on marketing? I mean, look, you have, and we said it before, DeLuca and Abdi, we're going to talk about them again, but you have people that know what they're doing at Warner Brothers. They're the best they are at what they do, theoretically. And if you look at the movies they put out just this year, they've had great ad campaigns. I mean, I wish they did more with Companion, but that's okay. The poster was great, the key art. But what they do for Sinners, what they did for Weapons, what they did for Final Destination, and what they did with the Minecraft movie. You look at that and you're like, look, man, you want that crack marketing team to make these films so people know that they're there, you have awareness, and if something like the chicken jockey thing happens, you even promote that. And that's what they need. And Netflix, they don't understand yet. Clearly, they don't understand how important marketing can be. But it's that marketing that tells everybody that this was theatrically released. And even if you haven't seen it, people are like, oh, yeah, the Minecraft movie, or, oh, yeah, the Weapons. I wanted to see that. Those kids disappeared all in one night. What happened? And they're going to watch it on streaming, and so they have to, they can't be in for a penny, in for a pound. They have to go all in. It's not just the 45 to 90-day window. It's the marketing budgets.
Yeah.
It's the understanding that theatrically releasing a movie has its own ecosystem. And they have to embrace all that, including trailers 6 months out, including, promoting all this stuff. And they should also build in something on the back end that tells people that, hey, this movie is coming. So after a successful theatrical release, they should start promoting, which is what they're not doing, promoting like movies promote, make a Netflix trailer for a movie that they release that already has its theatrical trailer.
See, now you're talking about synergy. And you are so right about that. Because Netflix, again, like how many times have we had somebody write in, hey, John, have you seen this show on Netflix, blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, I've never even heard of it. If they could create a proper ecosystem here where I think this is their grand vision, where Warner Brothers creates these movies. They have these theatrical runs. They let Warner Brothers promote, do all their kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. Now we know it's destined for Netflix. Maybe a month before it ends up going to Netflix, Netflix starts a secondary marketing campaign for that same movie, coming to Netflix in June. You saw it in theaters, made this much money.
Yes.
Now it is exclusive streaming home, coming to Netflix. Bigger than anything they've ever done.
And you could even do start something new, like the Netflix countdown. If a movie does really well,
now you're just giving them free consultation.
Well, dude,
here,
everyone
Rob.
knows we know everything. They just don't. We just aren't. We're just lowly YouTubers. But no, they should. I could do that all day, and they should do that. And as a matter of fact, they should turn. Everybody should know about theatrical windows and make it a fun thing. You know, like how Barbenheimer was. Take cues from that. It's a fun thing when a movie comes out. You know, you promote your ecosystem. Make it a fun thing. I mean, I don't know.
So
analytics say no.
Well, I don't know that analytics.
No, I don't know
say
either.
no, right? Like
you need to have creativity.
That's been part of the thing that's been frustrating us so much for like the last couple of years is that the analytics themselves have been starting to point the actual way, and certain analytics have just been ignored.
Right.
And it's like.
But analytics only knows what's already happened.
Sure.
They don't.
Can
there's
point
no room
you towards
for
what's working, what's not working, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes, not in the area of creativity, but you got to pay attention to that. Now, to their benefit and to their credit, again, in Sarandos's comments yesterday, it sounds like he gets that. It's just that as Netflix, we're not capable of doing it, but with Warner Brothers, we are. But if they don't stick to that, it could be a disaster. So that is our second point. Again, point number one that could make this Netflix Warner Brothers thing a disaster is if HBO Max is dissolved and absorbed into Netflix. The second thing that could turn this deal into a disaster is if Netflix shrinks Warner Brothers movies theatrical window to Netflix length window. Again, both of these things they say they're not going to do, but if they do them, disaster. All right. Let's move on now to the third scenario here that could turn this Netflix Warner Brothers deal into an absolute disaster. Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy are not given creative leadership. Look, as in the other 2 points, let's start off one with prefacing it by saying one of the very first things Ted Sarandos and his executives said about the potential takeover is the fact that, we need to keep their creative leadership. That much was clear. They want to do that. I think, Rob, you and I speculated that the whole reason a couple of months ago David Zaslav and Warner Brothers gave Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy a big fat contract extension was because they realized that them being there adds value to the company for whoever may come along and take it over. Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy, under their leadership this year alone, Warner Brothers set the all-time Hollywood record for the longest streak of most films released to over $40 million at the box office. They broke the record with 6. They extended their record with 7. Record got broke with One Battle After Another, which didn't make $40 million in its opening weekend, but still, they set that record. They are cooking. They're cooking right now. Just for God's sakes, Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdy, David Zaslav, if you're watching this, at CinemaCon, Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy, man, great movie executives. Not the greatest showman.
No.
Maybe you get some vice presidents on stage at CinemaCon to do your presentation. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, let's get back to this. So all that's good, and all that's set up very well. But if Netflix goes in and says, okay, now Warner Brothers, you start doing your thing. And we anticipate and would expect a little bit of corporate oversight. Of course, there should be, and there would be, but for the most part, you let the company cook, do its thing. You give them their guidelines, you give them their budgets, whatever, but then you let them cook. But if at some point, some executive at Netflix says to Ted Sarandos, Pam and Mike are doing this. I think we should do this instead. And they start interfering in the creative of what Warner Brothers is doing. And then they just start slowly but surely shuffling Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy off to the side. And now it's a committee running Warner Brothers that maybe includes DeLuca and Abdy, but it's also with 5 other Netflix guys running that. Again, Sarando saying, why would I invest $82 billion in that? I'm getting it before what it is. But if they don't, and they push DeLuca and Abdy to the side, and they start bypassing DeLuca and Abdy when it comes to the creative at Warner Brothers. To their credit, they're saying that's not what's going to happen. But if they do, this thing's a disaster. I told you I'd use that word a lot today. This thing would be an absolute disaster. The whole reason you get Warner Brothers right now is because of what DeLuca and Abdy have turned it into. Under the guidance of David Zaslav, obviously, but they are the studio heads of it. They are the ones making this thing run. They are the ones that brought it from what looked like, a lot of trouble, and they've resurrected this thing. Everything's going smooth. And, even Sarando said in his comments, oh my God, movies like the ones they've been put out, he called them out by name. He said movies like Minecraft, Sinners, Weapons, these are all things, that's DeLuca and Abdy.
And that was impressive that he could just throw that off the top of his head. So
it was impressive.
He's paying attention.
That's right. And I'm glad
Ted.
that he is. But I'm telling you what, you take over Warner Brothers and you get handed the gift from the gods of creative executives like Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy. You damn well keep them in place and you let them cook and you let them bring you success. Because if they don't, this thing's going to get real messy really fast, and it's, again, going to be a disaster. Rob, I'm saying that bypassing DeLuca Abdy, making them diminutive in Warner Brothers, reducing their roles in there would absolutely be a recipe for catastrophe. How do you feel about that?
Well, you can look to what AT&T did at Warner Brothers.
Oh my God, that's a great example.
They are still, my friend at Warner Brothers that I was talking to brought them up and said the studio is still reeling from what AT&T did. This friend of mine that I was talking to, that I adore, he was let go by AT&T, and then they realized that AT&T couldn't live without him, so they had to kind of sheepishly come back, and then finally they brought him back into the fold. But that's the mistake. The mistake, look, Pam Abdy and DeLuca, I keep saying it, it's like beating a dead horse. DeLuca has been a studio executive, a junior studio executive coming up through the ranks since the 80s. There is nobody at Netflix that knows more about making movies than Mike DeLuca does. There's nobody there. He's the baller. He's one of the top, and in terms of the industry, I don't think that there's any studio executive that can say that, yes, I wrote a screenplay that John Carpenter directed. And if you're a physical media fan, Arrow released a banger special version of that last month, which is In the Mouth of Madness. That's Mike DeLuca. Now, Mike DeLuca's not totally happy with how that movie came out, but what other studio executive has actually written a movie while they were at Warner, or while they were at New Line? And I just point that out because you have the best people already. And to come in and say, well, we really want to, because everybody wants to be a studio executive. They've watched the studio and they think, oh, I could do Seth Rogen's job.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks the movie business is the one business in the world that everybody thinks, because they've watched movies, they know how to make movies. I've seen it my whole life. It's incredible. But they don't. And they certainly don't know how to run a studio and have talent. What Pam Abdy and Mike DeLuca were doing, and it was called risky a year ago, was spending money and making those talent connections, like the Paul Thomas Andersons, and making a movie like One Battle After Another, which admittedly did not make as much money as Sinners, and it did not make as much money as Weapons, and it did not make as much money as Minecraft. However, it's probably going to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. So their strategy is sound. They now have relationships with Zach Kreger. They brought Ryan Coogler back into the fold. Paul Thomas Anderson probably isn't going anywhere. You've got Craig Perry and the boys making the Final Destination movies are going to make another one. They are working. They're cooking with gas. And to come in and say, well, guys, we're not going to let you do that anymore. I mean, oh, really? We're delivering you 4 horror films that made over $1.2 billion collectively at the box office.
For a genre that does not do that.
No. And you've got, you're getting Conjuring. You're getting 9 Conjuring movies, and the last one was the most successful, $500 million, bros. I mean, it's incredible. So it's like, it would be, first of all, not only would it be disastrous, it would just be monumentally dumb from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
And look, the same is true of Truth, Justice, and whatever. You got James Gunn and Peter Safran.
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh, right. Okay, we haven't. Yes. Sorry, I'm just going to say that you got a great team. You've got. I would make a sports analogy, but I don't know enough about sports. John, what was the greatest hockey dynasty in the world? You've got that dynasty right now at Warner Brothers.
It's true. You really do. It's working. It's cooking. It's why you want Warner Brothers if you're Netflix. Ted Sarandos is saying he recognizes that. And that's part of the plan. And that he's saying that's why I spent $80 billion. Let's see if he holds it up, because if he does not, disaster. All right. That was the third point. Let's move on to the fourth thing now, that were this to happen, the Netflix Warner Brothers deal would be a complete disaster. Point number 4, James Gunn leaves. Look, there are a couple things. By the way, some people still don't fully understand this. Some people believe in the structure of Warner Brothers right now that James Gunn and Peter Safran work for Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy. They do not. They are a separate division from Warner Brothers Pictures. They are the co-CEOs and chair of DC. Warner Brothers Pictures is its own thing. They are peers. One does not work for the other. So we already covered the Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy angle. But in the announcement, when they were announcing that they were going to be buying Warner Brothers, one of the statements that Ted Sarandos said, or one of his main executives said, was that, hey, for the first time in forever, DC is showing signs of life. They said that. Quote, the DC is finally starting to show signs of life. Yeah. Want to know why? Because James Gunn and Peter Safran. That's why. And Gunn and Safran were just recently interviewed after the Netflix thing was done. And they said, hey, listen, we love what we do. We love our jobs. We know the responsibility of it. And we're looking forward to continuing to doing this. But similar and different from the DeLuca and Abdy thing, you start to bypass James Gunn and Peter Safran in this. Well, then you know what you get? You get fucking Thunder Force. That's what you get. That's what Netflix does with superhero content. Thunder Force.
Ouch.
And if you guys don't remember what that is, go look it up. Thunder Force.
Or Jupiter Ascending.
Or
Jupiter Ascending, which should have been great. Part of the
Oh, man. Jupiter Ascender started off pretty well.
I know.
Too.
Well, it was Mark Miller, right? The Millerverse. They announced that they were going to do all these Mark Miller things, and that fell by the wayside.
I like the casting and everything, too, but I will never get over Thunder Force. I mean, I actually think Thunder Force is the worst thing I've ever seen in the comic book genre. I mean, I think worse than Crave. There it is.
Jupiter Ascending is not. That's
Thunder
not,
Force. And I like those people in that
too.
picture. That movie was terrible. But that's what you get. But listen, it's more than just bypassing them, because even from their original comments, it doesn't sound like they have any interest in bypassing James Gunn and Peter Safran, or pushing them aside, or making them diminutive in their own backyard. But one of the things they do have to be careful for is just them up and leaving. You want to be careful. Listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you got tiptoe around James Gunn and Peter Safran. You're still the bosses. It's still your company. You own it. But at the same time, you want to be able to let them cook like DeLuca and Abdy. But you also got to understand, there is something very unique. There are unique sets of pressures, Rob, when it comes to trying to create superhero cinematic universes.
Yeah.
I mean, like very particular, very passionate and angry fandoms, all this kind of stuff. And it's a very precarious wire that people like Kevin Feige, James Gunn, back when he was doing it, Zack Snyder, like everybody would say, it's a unique kind of pressure doing it. And what you want to do as the bosses of these types of people is facilitate.
Yes.
Facilitate.
That's good producing.
Facilitate. What do you need? What do you need? No, I'm not going to give you $700 million to make a Blue Beetle movie. But aside from that, what do you need? Like, what do you need? How can we make your life easier? Because if you don't, then the people who are uniquely equipped to handle these types of jobs and do them successfully, like James Gunn and Peter Safran are currently doing, then at some point they're going to do, this isn't worth the hassle anymore. And they're going to up and go. And if James Gunn wants to go, you know who's going to be waiting with an open door? Everybody. Remember when James Gunn left Marvel? What happened? Every single studio in Hollywood, we predicted this would happen. Every single studio in Hollywood lined up at his door with blank check offers to say, do whatever you want. The one he picked was Warner Brothers, and he picked to go with DC. If you don't give him an environment to cook, at some point he's just going to go, you know, I can make one phone call. I'll have offers from every studio in this business, including my buddy Kevin Feige, who's probably going to say, hey, you know what? I'm probably looking at leaving Marvel pretty soon. You want to come over here and take over Marvel? Hell, you only created one of the most successful franchises we have in the business with the Guardians stuff. So, I mean, they're going to want to be careful with it. Again, James Gunn is not your boss. You're James Gunn's boss. But you got to be very careful and make sure you don't just have him up and leave, because it has taken a while for them to, in Netflix's executive's own words, bring life back to DC. Hell, everybody's chattering now about the trailer that's dropping tomorrow of Supergirl. That's because James Gunn has created a new environment for fandom around DC.
And marketing, and so, going back to what we said, marketing.
And 100% with the marketing. Marketing, you also got to give that credit to Warner Brothers because they're the distributors. But I mean, you got to make sure he doesn't leave, because if he goes, you know Safran's going to go too. So my fourth point here is the way this Netflix deal could turn into a disaster is if James Gunn leaves. Anyway, Rob, your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I agree with you. And the thing about what DC is doing, which I find, again, really interesting, they have a number of things already in production. Supergirl, Clayface, Lanterns. We haven't seen those things yet. And also, they are overseeing Matt Reeves' The Batman 2, which is not part of the Gunverse, but they're probably having some input in on that as well, because it is a DC property. I don't know if Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca are overseeing Batman 2, but I would imagine it's James Gunn and Peter Safran. So they've got something that's sort of even outside their own universe. And if they continue to do that, if they continue to make standalone superhero films, that's great. That's great for them too. It just shows that they have multiple projects. They have Creature Commandos, they have Peacemaker Season 2, and they've got Superman so far. That's what we've seen from his universe. And they all have done pretty well. You know, Peacemaker was a big hit on HBO. Superman did great for a first, right out of the gate. And it's done well with VOD. And they have a really interesting slate coming. Why? They have at least another 3 or 4 years to go before we've seen everything that they've got in production. They're embarking on Man of Tomorrow in April? They start shooting that or whatever. And Batman 2 is starting to shoot. So they've got a really, really robust and really strong slate of movies that we're going to see coming out very quickly. Supergirl comes out in July. I'm not sure when Clayface comes out. I think also that comes out next year, toward the end of the year. Then they've got, I'm sure Man of Tomorrow will come out in 2027. Batman 2 will probably come out in 2027. This is a very healthy slate. That's also part of what they've bought. And why would you want to get rid of them? And James Gunn and Peter Safran have a really interesting opportunity. They're going to bring in more and more filmmakers. The thing about Supergirl is we get to see something that somebody else directed other than James Gunn. James Gunn didn't write the script, and James Gunn didn't direct the movie. So we're going to see what that looks like. It's going to give it a it's a different flavor of souffle. So I think they're cooking with gas over there too. Let's see where it goes. And why would you possibly want to get rid of those guys? They're in the middle of the early stages. This is the first stage of their 3-stage rocket that's going up, that's about to break free of Earth's gravity. Let them go to the moon, or let them go to Mars. Let them go to Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. Pluto's a planet, by the way. I don't care what anyone says. Let them go. Don't lose them. And Peter Safran's also connected as a producer to the Conjuring.
Oh yeah, he's done a lot for the company, which is part of the reason why they were comfortable making him the co-CEO with James Gunn there. These are guys you cannot lose. It's not just a matter of, obviously you don't get rid of them, but you got to make sure you do what you need to do to make sure they don't leave. And we'll see if they're able to do that. Because if they do go, and all of a sudden DC is facing yet another reboot, it's a complete and total disaster. All right. Let's now move on to the fifth thing that I think, were it to happen, it would equate to a complete disaster for this Netflix and Warner Brothers deal. Massive talent exodus from Warner Brothers. What am I talking about here? You don't have to go too far back in history.
No.
Hell, it was just a couple of years ago, just before David Zaslav and Discovery took Warner Brothers away from AT&T, that we saw one of the biggest talent backlashes against a studio ever, where, after, Jason Kilar, this was when AT&T owned Warner Brothers, and Jason Kilar was the head guy there, who, by the way, I slam on a number of the things that Kilar did. He also did some pretty smart things. I don't want to take away from that, so just let me be clear about that. But he also did some of the most monumentally stupid things in the history of that, in my personal estimation. But remember, it ended up that Christopher Nolan wrote public letters basically saying, and I'm annotating here, fuck you, I'm out. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that was basically the essence of Christopher Nolan to Warner Brothers. I am out and I'm gone, and they lost Christopher Nolan.
Oh, you motherfuckers.
Which is why Oppenheimer and the upcoming The Odyssey are not coming out under the Warner Brothers banner. Had nothing to do with David Zaslav or DeLuca Nabby. This was before them, and he was up and out the door, and he went over to Universal. One of the most calm guys in the world, the Canadian kid, Denis Villeneuve, wrote an open letter in one of the major trades saying, what the hell are you doing to Warner Brothers leadership? And a number of other, now he stuck around, but he made it clear, but that's because they had the rights to do, and he had no choice. But, and then we saw a number of other creatives go. We just recently have seen, like James Cameron himself. Now, James Cameron is not at Warner Brothers, but James Cameron just wrote a pretty strong, or had a pretty strong response in an interview saying, listen, I'll never work with Warner Brothers if they're owned by Netflix. They have to be careful about a mass talent exodus because, fair or unfair, there is going to be, Netflix is going to have to work hard to prove to the creatives in the business, we're serious. And that's not on the creatives, it's not on their shoulders to just believe it. It's on Netflix's shoulders that they got to prove it. They're going to have to work. Again, you can say it's unfair, but it doesn't matter. What is, whether it's fair or not. And what is that there are going to be a lot of creatives in the business and in the industry who are going to be, currently are, and will continue to be incredibly dubious about this whole thing. And the onus is going to be on Netflix and Ted Sarandos, which is part of the reason why I think he's already sounding like he's doing it. But it's going to be up to them that they are going to have to convince the creatives in the business and prove that they're serious about this industry, about this art, about this business. They got to prove they're serious about it. That we are going to let you guys continue to make the movies you're going to make. We are going to fully support Warner Brothers. We want the tradition of Warner Brothers to go. Again, their main battle cry is going to be, that's why we spend $82 billion is to get this thing so we can do that. Because if they don't, Rob, even in the absence of doing anything else wrong, if Netflix does not embark on a serious campaign to reach out in mass and individually to key creatives in this business that, listen, guys, we are dead serious. We are all into the theatrical business now. Ted Sarandos said yesterday, I'm now in the theatrical business. If you don't reach out in mass with huge campaigns and one-on-one private conversations with all these creatives, you could be facing a massive talent exodus away from wanting to work with Warner Brothers. And that is something they're going to have to work very, very hard for. Because if they do lose a lot of talent, like they already lost Christopher Nolan, thanks to AT&T, it's going to be a rough number of years for Warner Brothers moving forward. So anyway, Rob, I believe that is the fifth potential disaster here, is a big talent exodus. How do you feel about that?
I feel exactly the same way you do. I mean, that was another big mistake that AT&T made. They also made that the day and date, during the pandemic.
That was the number one mistake.
That was ridiculous. And that's really what, that was what set Christopher Nolan off with Tenet. I mean, things like John Hancock's The Little Things that had Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, and Rami Malek in it, that serial killer movie. And that wasn't the greatest movie in the world, but that was the first movie that suffered under that day and date release problem. And then all those movies did. You didn't just alienate one creator, you alienated a bunch of people in the business. And that was, again, that was a mistake made by people that didn't really know what they were doing. That was a knee-jerk response. That was not having enough trust in the business itself. The movie business has been run a certain way for over 100 years. It is not rocket science. You can look at trends and see things, what worked and what didn't work. You can see when the Hollywood system almost collapsed in the 60s under the drivel that they were making and how the renegades came in, like Coppola and like Dennis Hopper and Spielberg and Lucas and everybody, and changed the business in the 70s. You can look at these trends. It's not rocket science. But what you need is talent. The only thing that movie studios have to sell is good movies. Period. That's it. There isn't enough. They're not making. And by the way, movie studios are not making. I'd love it if they made mid-level dramas. I would love to go back to Warner Brothers. I thought when we made Hills Run Red, they were going to start making a bunch of movies for $5 million and under, and then I'd be able to participate in that. I got to make one. I think they should start that again. but they've got to figure out a way to also make movies and give new creators a shot. Make movies for $50 million. And make adult dramas that they've been completely taken out of the marketplace. And Netflix, if you know that you have a streaming service, like the one thing that they didn't used to have, I mean, they have HBO Max, but when they're making movies for streaming that cost $300 million, nobody knows the difference.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours of time, John. And if they've got a studio in place that already has this infrastructure, and by the way, you know what else Warner Brothers has? One of the greatest studio lots that ever existed. They have gigantic sound stages. Every single one of those, if you go to Warner Brothers now, it's like a ghost town. And they should bring back production and turn Warner Brothers, Netflix should turn it into, I mean, didn't they build a studio out in New Jersey or something? But they could turn that hub into the greatest production hub ever and bring everything under the roofs they have already that they're buying. I don't get it, man. And that talent, bring the talent back. Put all that talent. When I worked at Warner Brothers, you had Malpazzo, you had Clint Eastwood over here, you had George Lucas over, Richard Donner over here, and Joel Silver over here, and it was all on the lot. Do that again. Put all these creative people together, both TV and movies, all under that one. Make that lot come back together and put creatives together, man.
It goes beyond that lot because you have those state of the art down where the ranch used to be.
Yeah, that's right. They tore down. Yeah,
so
they tore down the Lethal Weapon house.
They also own the property that the old NBC Studios was on. It's now called the Burbank Studios.
Yeah.
I think they did a land swap thing there. So like Warner Brothers owns the land that NBC Studios was on, but not the sound stages in there. But then the company that owned NBC owns the land that the ranch is on, but Warner Brothers owns the sound stages on it.
Right.
So I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, they should turn it into the hub it used to be.
Well, guys, once again, these are the 5 scenarios in which this Netflix Warner Brothers deal could go very bad. One is if HBO Max, let's bring this up. If HBO Max is dissolved and absorbed into Netflix, that's a disaster. If Netflix shrinks Warner Brothers movies theatrical windows to Netflix-length windows, that's a disaster. Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi aren't given creative leadership at Warner Brothers, that would be a disaster. James Gunn leaves, that would be a disaster. And preventing, because they're going to have to work hard at this one, a massive talent exodus from Warner Brothers would absolutely be a disaster. Now, again, let me preface all this by saying each one of these things has kind of been addressed by Ted Sarandos in the last couple of days, saying, listen, guys, why do you think we're spending $80 billion? Like, if we wanted to shut down the theaters, we would spend $6 billion and shut down all the theaters. If we just wanted the content from HBO, well, we would buy just the content from HBO. We wouldn't spend $80 billion. We believe in keeping HBO separate. We want Warner Brothers to continue operating as a theatrical business. We are now in the theatrical business. We want to keep the executive leadership that we have in place and let them cook. They're saying all the right things. And I can't think of an ulterior motive about what they would actually want if it's not that. But if they do, and any one of these things goes down, it's going to be a disaster. Now, I don't know, maybe tomorrow, Rob, we'll talk about the 5 potentially great outcomes of a Netflix Warner Brothers deal. Maybe that would be fair too.
Ellison watching, just stewing over these episodes.
Yes.
They're not. Yeah. I'm not impressed with their behavior.
No, I'm not. Again, I'm cheering for Paramount, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what David Ellison and the leadership team from Skydance are going to do and how they're going to evolve Paramount. And I think they have some pretty cool ideas for Paramount. I'm excited to see where they're going to go, and I'm cheering for them. I am. But that can be true, and it can also be true that I'm extremely laughing at them for how their behavior surrounding this whole thing. Look, if you want to go after Warner Brothers, by all means, go after Warner Brothers. But a lot of the public statements they're making, he's just coming across as a petulant child.
And an amateur.
Yeah, and he's coming across like an amateur who doesn't understand the business. And he's got to reel that in. Because I really do want him to succeed. I really do. I'm not being facetious.
Yeah,
I really want to see
safe.
him succeed, and I want to see Paramount do well.
Yeah. Another great lot that should be abuzz with activity.
Anyway, guys.
That goes into the whole thing with like the state and everything too. So
whatever you think about any or all of these points here, jump down to the conversation into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time for us to move on to the most important part, which is taking your observations, thoughts, and questions. But before we do that, we got to do two things. One is bid good afternoon to writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett. Rob, thanks a lot for being here, man. Great job as always.
Thanks for having me. This was a great show.
See you tomorrow. And of course, the other thing we need to do before we get to your questions, we're going to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show, our friends at Aura. Guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of this video, Aura. Guys, if you are anything like me, you swear every year you're going to be on top of your Christmas shopping, and then suddenly it's December 20th, the shelves are empty, and you're standing around in Target asking yourself, does my aunt even like candles? But this year, I am not doing that because of Aura Frames. It's completely saved me. See, I always struggled with what to get people in my life, but this year I'm going to give out a couple of Aura Frames, and it's hands down the most personal, meaningful gift that I can possibly give. And here's the best part. Aura lets you upload unlimited photos and videos. Plus, the frame comes in a premium gift box with no price tag, so it feels like a classy, well thought out gift, even if you bought it last minute. Guys, you can't gift wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code CAMPEA at the checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code Campea. This deal is exclusive to our listeners and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in on time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning that we sent you at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And thank you to our friends at Aura for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show. You know what? I really feel like I like doing these longer deep dive topics.
Yeah, they're fun.
I think I want to do these.
They're very
once in a while.
focused.
Yeah,
Very
like,
focused.
Like normally we try to keep our like individual segments pretty
Sure.
tight and pretty quick and stuff like that. But I like every once in a while just taking one big topic and just like for an hour going more of a deep dive into it. Anyway, I enjoyed that. That was
It's also
fun.
really educational for our audience too, because it allows you to get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, and I just had a really good time doing that. So anyway, guys, with that all down, let's get on to the important stuff here, which is taking your live comments and questions. Jonathan, what we got up first?
First up, Zachary Zarvos. It was great seeing everyone last night in Burbank. 3 movies out now and are in my top 10 of the year are Eternity, Fackham Hall, and Rental Family. I want to see Eternity and actually I want to see all 3 of those.
I still got to watch Rental Family.
Okay.
I had the choice the other night of watching Rental Family or Marty Supreme. I chose poorly.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very excited about watching Rental Family. I mean, listen, Brendan Fraser has always been a great performer, but he's
Sure.
evolved so much. I mean, obviously The Whale was the pinnacle of that, him winning an Academy Award, but I think he's got more in him. I really do. And I'm really excited about seeing that movie. All right, what's next?
Aiden Foley. Oh boy. What did you think of Five Nights at Freddy's 2?
Yeah, I started off, it was absolutely terrible. Like, I didn't like the first 5 nights, but I didn't think it was like awful. You know, I didn't think it was awful. Like, it just, yeah, I thought it could have been better, you know, because I was pretty excited about that movie. Like, I'd been excited for that movie for years.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought they could have done better. This one wasn't, they could have done better. This one was terrible. It's awful. Like, really bad. It's hard for me to believe like professional filmmakers made it, but again, there are other people who like it, and that's why it's the beautiful thing about movies is the subjectivity of it, because just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you necessarily won't. But yeah, I do have to admit, I really hated the film. I thought it was just terrible. All right, what's next?
Jamie Sunday says, yesterday was so dope. Meeting all of you was such a pleasure. Usually after seeing a film, I'll run to this community online and see what everyone says. But last night, everyone was there in front of me.
You know, one of the coolest things about the movie meetups has been, you know, as I'm starting to meet everybody one-on-one and doing individual pictures, that means there are like 150 people who are just standing around waiting for their turn. And one of the coolest things of the movie meetups is seeing these film fans meeting other film fans, and then they start their own conversations and talking.
Yeah.
And like, I've been reached out to by people who've like people at our Phoenix meetup and people at our Salt Lake City meetup saying, oh yeah, me and this one dude now are like totally best friends. And we met at the movie meetup, and seeing a lot of that last night too is like one of the coolest parts. So thank you to everybody for making last night so great. All right, what's next?
We got a silly goose says, great meeting you last night. Totally forgot to tell you that I love the show. something to look forward to each day.
Oh, thank you so much, man. That's and it's really cool being at the location of where we started AMC Movie Talk.
Yeah.
It was really cool having some people come up to us last night, because Jonathan was there too. Come up to us last night and say, I've been watching since AMC Movie Talk, and being able to point at that round room and saying, that's where we did it.
Yep. I would point out and say, that's where I interviewed for my, with
that's right.
John.
That was where your first interview
and everyone was
was
like, no way, that was your guys' studio? Yeah, right there.
Yep. That storage closet was our studio. All right. By the way, guys, just to let you know, I'm going to turn off the super chats in about 30 seconds. So if you still have a thought or a question you want to send in, you got about 30 seconds to do it. And then I'm turning off the super chats. All right. What's next?
Tristan, 22 years after seeing Kill Bill, top 5 favorite for the first time when I was 8. Whoa, 8.
Wow.
Got to see it again in theaters. Quite a surreal experience.
I still haven't watched the whole bloody affair. But like my business guy went to go see it, and it's like, this is the way to see the movie. And we had several people write in yesterday too, saying, hey, I've been watching Kill Bill like my whole life, but this is the way to watch it. As the whole bloody affair is the way to watch it. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think I want to see it at Tarantino's Vista Theater here in Hollywood.
All right, what's next?
Jamie Sundays, John, I emailed you the photos from last night.
I had several people send me photos from last night, which is, by the way, that's one of the other great things from the movie meetups. Everybody else takes their own pictures, and then a lot of them will send them to me and share them, and I love getting them. So thank you to everybody who did that. All right, what's next?
Some sports talk. David Cushmore says, did the CPF get it right by leaving BYU and Notre Dame out of the playoffs?
According to the way they have their rules set up, yes. I'm sorry, if Notre Dame wanted
or Notre Dame, I forget, but it's pronounced Notre Dame, not
if Notre Dame wanted to get in, they should have beat Miami. Sorry, I'm not shedding any tears for Notre Dame. They should have beat Miami. And they didn't get in. Now, the whole thing about the two smaller schools, Madison and whatever the other one that they let in. Listen, that's just the way they got the rules set up. And they probably need to change it, but Notre Dame didn't get in this year. They could have taken care of business and gotten in, and they didn't. And it is Tulane. That's the other one that got Tulane and JMU. Yeah, listen, do they need to look at those rules? Yes, they do for next year. Maybe make some changes. But those are everybody knew. That's the way the rules were set up this year. That's the way the entries into the playoff was going to be set up this year. And that's how it went. No, didn't catch anybody by surprise. Take care of business. Win the games you're supposed to win, and you'll be in too. All right, what's next?
Christopher Diaz, thoughts on Percy Jackson season 2, first 2 episodes?
Haven't watched it yet. Haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm probably at least a week or two away from watching, because I still need to get caught up fully on Welcome to Derry. Once I get caught up on Welcome to Derry, then I'll start picking up on that.
Disney did this really cool thing, this billboard at Hollywood and Vine. And it was for that, and it was like a video billboard.
Really?
But it had like a well of water. So every time the Kraken's, like in the video, the Kraken's tentacle would hit, it would just crash water out and over. It was so cool.
That's cool. I love that interactive ones when they do them.
We got Timmy says, hey, John, you hinted at another trailer in front of Avatar. Are you allowed to say what it is? Wondering if I have to be there early.
I'm not. And by the way, I might be wrong. Like listen, just like everybody, sometimes I get told stuff and it turns out the stuff I was told wasn't true. I believe this thing I was told is true. And I will, once it comes out, I'll say what it was, but I can't say what it was I was told, because somebody said, hey, if I tell you this, you can't reveal it. I'm like, okay. And so I got to stick with that. All right, what's next?
Matt says, this is a part 1. Let's see. So we got, hi, John, this is Matt, who showed you the pictures of the wedding I had in the Philippines when you visited Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you had a much better experience at WDW. I gave security and Disney Springs management a heads up that you were coming. Hope they wouldn't give you a hard time after the movie. It was truly a blessing to meet you all.
Listen, I will say this. First, thank you again for writing in. We did get harassed a little bit by Disney Springs. But I also get it to a degree. I get it. There was this big crowd of people, and it was a big crowd. There was a big turnout to the movie meetup in Orlando. And, they want to be safety conscious. You see a big crowd of people, that could be a red flag. But to their credit, even though they said we couldn't do it and we had to disperse, they said, we'll try to get as many done as you can, meet as many people as you can, and wrap this up in 20 minutes. And we did go as fast as we could, but it still took us an hour and a half. And they let us do it. So, yeah, they did harass us a little bit, but they were only following the rules. And big appreciation for the fact that they kind of let it slide. And our movie meetups are always completely fun and joyous and well-behaved and all that kind of stuff. And I think they recognize that, and they just let us do it, even though they didn't have to let us do it. And they have my appreciation for that. All right, what's next?
Sports guy, Corey. I've seen 160 movies this year.
Wow.
No performance has struck me more than Rita Zohar in Eleanor the Great, giving praise despite no awards buzz.
I haven't seen Eleanor the Great. So I don't know that one, so I can't say. But, that's one of the great things about movies is that you find these movies and you find a gem in something, whether it's the movie itself, a particular performance, particular visual effects, particular humor, whatever. And it kind of becomes one that's yours. And you get to be the one to share it with people. And I always get a kick when I get to do it. And I love it when people get to share that with me. All right, what's next?
We got David, who says, what do you think Tulane and James Madison going to the CPF college football playoffs this year? Newcomers jump ahead of Notre Dame and BYU. Do you think Alabama should be in the CPF?
Well, I've already explained that. Everybody knew what the structure was this year. And it's all going according to the structure they had this year. So you can't cry about it now. And by the way, it used to be that there were only 4 teams that get in. Now there's like 12 teams, and I think they're going to expand it to 16. Whatever. You didn't get in. You could have got in. That's on you. Listen, I'm of the belief that the reason I believe it's perfectly good and right that Alabama is in there is because I believe there are several teams, more than half the teams, quite frankly, that are in the college playoff that Alabama would be favored to beat. It's about putting the best teams in there. That's what it's about. And most of the teams, not all of them, but if most of the teams that are in the playoff, if they play head to head with Bama next week, there's at least 7 of them that I think Alabama would be the betting favorites to win because they're just a better team. And I know they have 3 losses, but one of their losses was to the, number 3 ranked team in the nation. The other one was to a bit highly ranked team. But it's also about the eye test, and they are a better team that will beat most of the other teams that are in the playoff race. Not all of them. Like, they're not going to beat Ohio State. They have beaten Georgia, but we saw what happened with Georgia. They're not going to beat Indiana, but a lot of the other teams on that list, they're the ones to take, so they should absolutely be there. All right, what's next?
We got John Derry. Oh, no, Super Nintendo Chalmers. You purchased a movie theater.
I just want to Buddha 10-13 in there said Bama 9-3, Notre Dame 9-2. Yeah, but look at strength of schedule. And I'm sorry, Bama would beat the shit out of Notre Dame if they played on a neutral field next week. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows Bama would beat Notre Dame. So it's not so much about what your record is. It's about the clear the eye test. Who's the better team? Bama's the better team right now. All right. What's next?
All right. Super Nintendo Chalmers. You purchased a movie theater. It has a dated screen and no cup holders. You can only change one right away. Which one would you choose? Screen.
Screens. Yeah. You can hold your cup. You can't change. Your eyes got to be on that screen for 2 hours. So yeah, if it comes down to that, the first thing you do is the screens. Yeah. Second thing you do is the seats. Third thing you do is the accessories to the seats. Proper cup holders, a swinging table maybe, reclining to the seats. But your number one thing, screens. Number 2, because let's say you have terrible seats and terrible carpets and all that kind of stuff. For 2 hours, you're not going to be thinking about that because your eyes are on the screen. But if you have a bad screen, that's all you're ever thinking about. Mm-hmm. I've been in theaters that have had bad screens, and that's all I can think about the entire movie. So start with screens, then seats, then the accessories to the seats, then everything else.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
All right. Well, obviously we touched on this a lot during the main episode, but John says, should we be prepared for another DC reboot once Paramount or Netflix wins WB? Usually mergers mean changes. Anything is possible. Excited for Supergirl. Don't want invested fans to feel down.
The difference in this merger is that Netflix is getting them specifically because they want what they are.
Right.
They want DeLuca and Abdi. They want James Gunn and Peter Safran. They want their distribution infrastructure. They want that. And that's why we're buying them. So I mean, listen, again, I can only go by what they're saying themselves, which is we're going to keep it all intact because that's what we're spending $80 billion are, and that's what we want. All right, what's next?
We got CR says, what do you think Netflix has to do to convince Hollywood they're committed to theatrical? It's actions.
Yeah, actions and personal assurances. Like I said, they have to do it on two levels. The one level is mass comments.
Yeah.
Saying like what Ted Sarandos has been doing lately, saying publicly,
yeah,
HBO is going to continue to be its own service.
You're going
saying
on record.
Publicly that we want to keep the creative executives. That's good. You got to keep doing that. But it's also about, he's got to spend the next 6 months having private one-on-one meetings.
Yes.
Getting together with the people who have worked with Warner Brothers, who he wants to work with Warner Brothers in the future, and giving personal assurances and stuff like that. It's going to have to be a two-pronged attack of public statements, private meetings, and they're going to have to do that, and they're going to have to do it well. They're going to have to sell it because a lot of people are very understandably, like James Cameron, are going to be very dubious.
Yeah.
Just like I'm still kind of dubious. I'm warming up to it. They're winning me over. But even I am still kind of dubious about it. So they're going to have to work really hard with these Hollywood creatives. All right, what's next?
Mr. I can't wait for 4K content to be put behind a paywall, and series lucky to get 2 seasons on HBO Max after the Netflix overlords take over HBO Flix.
Again, if they were just absorbing HBO into Netflix, that would clearly be something we'd be worried about. But they are insisting that HBO is going to continue, HBO Max is going to be continued to allow to function under its own auspices, that they're going to be able to do things their way. And again, that's what they're saying. Now they got to prove that they're going to live to that.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Brandon Entwistle says, this makes me want to watch Succession again. David Ellison is really giving Kendall Roy energy. I'm the eldest boy.
I'm the eldest boy. I'm the eldest child. Yeah.
Honestly, rooting for Netflix. I still have to watch Succession. I still haven't gotten into it.
So you don't know that scene. I'm the eldest boy.
Yeah.
It was a great scene. And that's kind of exactly what Ellison is doing. And again, listen, I really feel like I really need to reemphasize this. Don't be surprised when you hear me say that, but tomorrow hear me talk about how excited I am to see what the future of Paramount is. Look, when David Ellison and Skydance first took over Paramount, they laid out what their philosophy was going to be, what some of their targets were going to be, what their North Star was going to be, and how they were going to pursue it, and what their dreams and ambitions for Paramount were. And I think a lot of them were very exciting. And I hope they're able to do it. I even got some belief that they're going to be able to do a lot of it, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. And I'm excited to see where they go. That has not changed. I still feel that exact same way. I just think he's humiliated himself and embarrassed himself and embarrassed his company with how they've been handling this whole Netflix things. Listen, if Ellison's not careful, he's going to turn the public off of himself, and he's going to turn the public off for Netflix.
Yeah.
Or turn the public off of Paramount. And listen, I talked to some people in Paramount, and the basic feeling around Paramount was, yeah, David Ellison just embarrassed our company. So again, it's not something you can't recover from.
Sure, of course.
It's not something that some really good strategic moves moving ahead, put out some successful projects. Again, we're at least a year away from that happening because it takes a while for that to happen, but it's nothing that can't be fixed. And I still believe in his vision for Paramount. I still think they can do great things there. He's just got to learn that you can't just act like a petulant child on this level. Maybe you could do that at Skydance. You can't do it on this level and not be mocked. Because right now, David Ellison is making himself a joke, and he's making himself a laughing stock. And people look at him now, and the first thing we do is chuckle. And It's still early. He can easily fix that. Easily fix that. He's just got to reel it in a little bit. All right, what's next?
Zach Pasta Sauce Walters. Hey crew, I just watched Unstoppable with Denzel and Chris Pine for the first time. OMG, that was so good.
It's a fun movie.
It's a pretty good movie.
It's one of the oddest films that Denzel Washington ever did. You know, when you look back at a lot of that's a Denzel movie and that's a Denzel movie. Unstoppable. It's the movie about it's basically Speed. Guys who get on a train that they can't turn on the brakes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no. I mean, it's it seems like a throwaway Sandra Bullock kind of film. But by the way, I don't mean that as any disrespect to
It
Sandra
had very
Bullock.
90s sensibilities.
Yes, it felt very much like a 90s kind of throwaway action film. Yet it was actually pretty damn good. I had a good time with that one. I like that one. All right, what's next?
We got Brandon who says, could WB struggle to secure big talent given weariness? Streaming companies sometimes go back on their deal to distribute theatrically like Roadhouse.
Yeah, they will. Again, that's why we made such a big emphasis of it, that they're going to have to really work hard to prevent that from happening and to give assurances that they're not going to do like what, say, Amazon did to Roadhouse, where they promised the director this is going theatrical and then reneged on it.
Right.
At least that's how the story is painted. That is going to be, again, fair or unfair, that's going to be the perception. And they're going to have to do a lot of hard groundwork to change that perception, and that the onus is on them to do it. And we'll see if they were able to accomplish it or not. All right, what's next? Max
says, did you see that Netflix wanted to buy Disney before Warner Brothers?
I did not. Is that verified? Is that
true? They said in an interview they were interested in there was a gaming company at one point they were interested in purchasing, and they had thought about purchasing Disney.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, that kind of surprises me, because why would Netflix want to get into the theme park business?
Oh, it was EA Sports was the video game company.
I could see them wanting EA Sports, but why would you want to get into the parks business and the cruises business?
Yeah, that's
and
a
the
big undertaking.
Experiences business. I'm not quite sure why they'd want to do that. I know that's interesting though. All right, what's next?
David Cushmore, is Netflix going to keep the WWE? Should Netflix buy all of the WWE PLEs?
I don't care. I watch WrestleMania every year. I'll watch any wrestling event that our friend Nigel McGuinness is in. And I will probably watch one other major pay-per-view per year. But I just don't follow wrestling like I used to follow wrestling religiously for decades. I don't really follow it all that much anymore. But anyway, here's the thing. Regardless of whether they buy Warner Brothers or not, whatever contract Netflix has with WWE, that's still their contract. If it's for 5 more years, it's still for 5 more years. That doesn't change. So nothing should change. Everything should remain the way it is. All right, what's next?
We got Flipside Studios. Loved last night's meetup. So great to meet everyone. Wanted to attend more in LA. Shout out to Jonathan for the encouragement on my start as show. Oh yeah, man. I have your flyer actually with me, so that's really cool. But yes, we're all looking forward to that.
Yeah, and again, such a great time last night. So cool doing this. But this was our first movie meetup kind of on home turf. Everything else has been in another state, in another city, 15 hours away. This one was pretty cool to do. And again, big thanks to everybody who turned out last night. All right, what's next?
We got Curtis Lopez. Being the hockey guy you are, what are your thoughts on the Mighty Ducks movies?
Hate them. Honestly, even as a kid. Even as a younger kid. Let me back that up. I didn't hate them. They never stuck with me. They never stuck with me. I always thought they were what they were. And despite the fact that hockey is in the movie, it didn't change that. Me personally, I never thought those movies were all that good. Now, I got to be careful how loud I say that, because my wife loves the Mighty Ducks, the movies. She loves them. But yeah, they were never all that special to me for whatever reason. All right, what's next?
We got Jay Pinnix. Will Avatar make under $1 billion? I got ticks, but it got cut off. But I don't think it makes under. No way.
No chance. Well, I shouldn't say no chance.
Sure, but
it is now, like, the question a lot of people ask is, will it make $2 billion? And which I do not think it'll make $2 billion. But fail to make $1 billion? No, I would be shocked if that were to happen. Everything's possible, but I would be shocked if that were to happen. I
Plus
don't think it's going to make over 2, but I don't think it's going to make under 1.
Yeah. Plus, it's gonna get padding from that Doom trailer.
Yeah.
Doomsday, I should say. Mr. Old Ass Foo says, was nice meeting you guys last night and meeting few members of the community. Made the hours fly by so fast. Taylor said, next meetup for Shrek 5.
Yeah, unsurprisingly,
Yeah.
Taylor was we got to do this again for Shrek 5. Of course we got to do it for Shrek 5. All right, what's next?
Right guy. Never thought I'd be excited for a Supergirl movie, but here I am. Cool little teaser for the teaser. Yeah, they dropped some more today. And a poster.
Basically, they dropped the announcement today. Trailer tomorrow. So obviously one of the things we're going to be talking about on the show tomorrow is Supergirl. But
the tagline was truth, justice, whatever.
Which is perfect for that character. Perfect for the character. You know, and that's all I've seen all last night, all today on my social media feeds is people getting excited about the Supergirl trailer. Again, I don't think the Supergirl trailer is going to even necessarily crack the top 10 of the highest viewed trailers of all time. But mark my words, it is going to crack the 100 million mark. More than 100 million views in the first 24 hours. You mark my words. Take it to the bank. It will. Now we'll just see if the trailer's any good or not. All right, what's next?
Movie Man Show. I'm going to New York to see the Odyssey prologue.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's always great when you can travel around and see the stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's next?
We got well, I don't know how to say that.
Ejo Person?
Ejo Person, maybe. Thanks to John and crew for staying so late last night to speak with everyone.
Yeah, listen, one of the things I do at and people always get surprised when I say it, but I let everybody know I'm going to stay until I've met everybody who wants to meet me, which I don't know why there's more than 3, but whatever. And I do. And sometimes that means we're there till 1 a.m. Last night we got through it really fast. Well, thankfully the movie wasn't that long and we were out of there before midnight. We were out of there before midnight last night. But yeah, I if people are going to come out and make an effort to try to see Loser Nobody Me, then I'm going to stick around. And so it took a few hours, but we got through everybody last night. All right, what's next?
Philip, for what it's worth, you guys have made me some money investing the last few months. Made a little money after you mentioned Comcast a few days ago, too.
Well, I'm glad that has happened.
There you go.
I don't recall giving any specific investment advice, but I'm glad whatever words of wisdom I gave helped you make some money. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a couple years ago we were talking about WBD when it was like $11, $12, $8, I think. Now it's $27.
Yep, now it's $27, man. Yeah, there are people eating good right now. Even our friend Sean, who obviously he's been on our show a few times. He even dropped a message to me on publicly, so I'm not giving any insider information away. He dropped on one of my posts that says, "Yeah, man, I bought into Warner Brothers a little bit ago, and they're making me money."
Yeah.
So that's always good to see. All right, what's next?
Conspiracy Gamer Eye. Why did Wicked 2 not hit $1 billion like you thought?
I never said that.
I don't think we ever thought it was going to hit $1 billion.
I thought it could.
Yeah.
I definitely I thought it was possible that it could.
But once we realized too, the second part wasn't as strong.
That's the thing.
We also backed off of that.
I mean, listen, going into Wicked 2, it definitely had the possibility of being a $1 billion film, but I never said, oh yeah, automatic $1 billion film.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, but it could have, and the reason it didn't is because it's not as good as the first one. It's just like, I was really impressed with the first one. Like, I really liked the first one, but if you guys saw my At a Theater review, I was like, yeah, this isn't as good as the first. As a matter of fact, I think the first, full half, more than the first half of this new one, is bad. It picks up in the last act. The third act actually really starts to come together, and it salvages the movie to me. So I still like the film overall. But yeah, the reason it didn't hit its potential, and its potential was the $1 billion mark.
Yeah.
But like any other film, the reason it didn't meet its potential is because it just simply wasn't as good as the other ones, and people didn't go back to see it as multiple times as they did for the first one.
Sure.
They didn't tell their friends they had to go see it like they did for the first one. So we see it all the time. All right, what's next?
So definitely will cross $500 million though. Animesh says 6 months ago, Ted in an interview in India said that he doesn't get into the theater business because he doesn't understand it. Makes sense. They bought WB as it gets them an entry with a preset model.
Yeah, which is exactly what we were talking about yesterday, right? which is, yeah, we've never done the full theatrical. We've never done that because we don't know it. We're not good at it. That's not what we do. We do this.
Yeah.
You want to get into it? Go get people who do know how to do it.
Well, and what's interesting is, you know, he wasn't a big runner-up for Paramount when Skydance was courting Paramount, because he knew probably, well, this is a company that needs to be salvaged and built up again. But Warner Brothers is not in that situation.
Warner Brothers got themselves salvaged and built up again and got themselves. Look, Warner Brothers has the people, the executives, the expertise, and most importantly, the infrastructure in place with its own distribution arm, by the way. Their own built-in distribution system. Warner Brothers is not just movie producers.
Right.
They're also a distribution company.
They distribute for other studios.
Yep, they distribute their own films, and they'll do some distributing for other studios as well. That is something Netflix has never had. So they look at Warner Brothers, and they're like, okay, we don't know how to do this shit, so we've never really gotten too involved in it. But they do. So let's go buy them.
You know what I just dawned on me, and we haven't even touched on it? This includes all of Warner Brothers music, which is massive.
Does it include Warner Brothers music, or is that going to be spun off with Discovery Global?
Now I need to know, because if they have the library of Warner Brothers music, the licensing, that's massive.
For the record, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I don't either.
My guess is, just a guess, my guess is that would be bundled in with the Discovery Global spin-off stuff. Again, I don't know that for a fact at all, but my guess is it's going to be spun off with Discovery Global.
Oh, someone's saying Warner Brothers music isn't owned by WB anymore. So they never mind.
That settles that.
I'll have to do some research on that. All right, D Wild, how do you feel about the Marty character? Is how I feel about Carol in Pluribus. To me, she just seems so unlikable, finding myself hate watching.
The difference between Carol in Pluribus and Marty in Marty Supreme is Marty is actively a bad person. It's not just that he's unlikable. He is actively a bad person, which is what leads him to being unlikable. Carol in Pluribus is flawed and has some unlikable traits. But when rubber meets road, she's a good person. You know, she's a good person who loves and was loved and wants to save the world and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I see where you're coming from on that, though. I do. I get where you're coming. All right, what's next?
All right, final one. Robo Producer simply says, John, thanks for being a bright spot in my day.
Aw, thank you for that, man. I appreciate that very much. It's always cool when people want to write and just say something supportive. I appreciate that, man. And guys, I had turned off the Super Chats a long time ago. That'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all of you guys for spending time here with us. I also want to thank, of course, Robert Meyer Burnett, our technical producer, Jonathan Boyko.
See you guys later.
I guess one of the things we're going to be talking about tomorrow is the Supergirl trailer.
Yeah.
I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yep.
Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for being here. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. And until then, my friends, bye-bye.